Chapter 40 The Holy Grail. After it was over, once I found myself on the other side, standing in a state of mind that felt totally unknown. There I went on to doubt and question everything. It was intense, active, and vigorous, as I went on to throw away all forms of dependence, bondage, conformity, and acceptance. With steady eyes scanning the desolate battlefield, there was no one else here, not even Krishna. And where was God at a time like this? Why, no one else was here. Who was in charge to make all of this happen? At first there was shock, denial, then anger, and I was even aware of how some would say this was the starting point of the grieving process. But I couldn't understand where God had gone. How could God seemingly disappear at a time like this? Why, if the world took one look at this, they would point their finger at whom they chose to blame. But all I did was surrender to God, and I offered a voice to become like an instrument. It was never up to me. Why, each night I pray that all beings may be free. May all beings have peace. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings have a place to sleep, and may all beings have food to eat. Yet here I was, feeling completely alone, and in that moment I wondered if God had forsaken humanity. Would they call me an atheist if they knew I questioned where God had gone? Why, if you stood in my shoes at a time like this, you'd hear my doubts that our religions had it all wrong. I began to shout in the mind, why doesn't God do something? Why would God remain hidden? Meanwhile, humanity seems to behave like wild beasts and kill anyone that God sends. And what were we supposed to make of this? Why, the people who seem to be most aligned with the truth, compassion, and the forward movement of humanity are often the ones who get destroyed in the process. I began to doubt that God was real, because if God was aware of all this, then why wouldn't God do something about it? Why, when we look at Isaiah, Amos, and Jeremiah, they were almost uniformly rejected, imprisoned, or killed by the very people they were sent to. It was Jeremiah who explicitly complains to God about this, in passages of raw anguish that read more like accusations than prayer. It seems we find a pattern, how there are those who stand apart from the masses, away from those who are feral in some deep sense, and so the masses are only capable of recognizing the truth in retrospect and almost incapable of tolerating the truth in the present. Look at Joan of Arc, who was proven innocent and acquitted 25 years after she was burned at the stake. Then nearly 5 centuries after her execution, she was eventually canonized as a saint. Can you imagine Cassandra, who was given the gift of prophecy and the curse that no one would believe her? She is the archetype of the person who sees clearly but cannot make others see, and is condemned to watch the consequence of their disbelief unfold. Her curse is not just isolation, but vindication much later after anyone understood her. Look at Galileo, who was formally condemned by the Inquisition in 1633, and the Catholic Church didn't officially acknowledge that they had been wrong until 1992, when Pope John Paul II issued a statement conceding that the theologians who had tried Galileo made an error 359 years later. And it wasn't just Isaiah, Amos, Jeremiah, Joan of Arc, or Galileo, but there is a pattern that arises. And so we could read Giordano Bruno when we find that he was burned at the stake in the 1600s for asserting an infinite universe with multiple worlds. Yet unlike Galileo, he refused every offer to withdraw. He was formally renewed by the Vatican in the year 2000, exactly 400 years later, where a statue stands in Rome at the precise spot of his execution. The list goes on and on, from Alan Turing, Alfred Wegener, Tesla, Van Gogh, Gregor Mendel. As it seems, the most culturally, spiritual, and powerful figures are the ones who take action, because action is what makes the vindication meaningful, whereas the person who is simply silent and right isn't remembered, but rather the person who is right and paid for it becomes the myth. It seems the masses of our world punish the trailblazers not out of malice, but because the trailblazers indirectly indicts everyone else for not having seen it first, and reveals how the old way is flawed and wrong. This then creates an exile for the trailblazer, while the masses of people are left to protect their self-image. That's why genuine courage in this archetype isn't just intellectual, it's the willingness to become a mirror that others don't want to look into. We could examine the myth of Persephone, the maiden of pure light, who is abducted into the underworld by Hades and held captive while the world withers above. Her accuse is cosmological, not just personal. And this myth reveals how the hero is summoned to descend into the underworld to revive the world's fertility. If we look to Sophia in Gnostic cosmology, the divine feminine wisdom descends into matter and becomes trapped there, then forgotten and degraded. The entire Gnostic drama is about her rescue and return. There are such monsters that trap her and are called the Archons, who are beings of hollow power that rule the material plane and mistake control for reality. But such monsters cannot perceive what they are actually starving for. Yet who among us descends to retrieve the wisdom of God's pure light? And where is God in this process? Why doesn't God just do it? Or is God waiting for one of us? In another legend, Orpheus descends into the underworld with only his music, no weapon, no armor, just the power of love expressed as art. He doesn't fight Hades, rather, he sings to him, and even the stones weep. What if we examine Daniel in the lion's den, who walks unarmed into what should be death, protected not by his own force, but by devotion? It seems the lions cannot touch what God has claimed, and yet where is God? Because all we're aware of is the mysterious, invisible force that works through Daniel. One of the oldest myths we possess is from the Sumerians, roughly 4,000 years old, where the goddess Inanna descends voluntarily into the underworld, which is ruled by her dark sister, and surrenders a piece of her power at each of the 7 gates. She arrives stripped of everything. She is killed and hung on a hook, and is only restored through the mourning of those who love her. The pattern is the same: the descent, the stripping, death, and resurrection through love. Oh, there is something so strange, almost eerie about the pattern when we step back to examine the people who stand apart from the masses, and their ideas outlast any finality of death by millennia. Notice how the Roman officials who condemned Jesus are in the footnotes, while the case of a death becomes the transmission mechanism, and it reveals that martyrdom is paradoxically the most durable form of communication that a culture possesses. Such a message of extreme importance gets sealed in the wound of the heartache, and at last we can look to the one who was crucified upon the hilltop named Jesus. When we talk of Jesus' story and how he died, then rose 3 days later, we find that suddenly they say, Jesus rose to heaven. But how does someone who is said to have died then come back to life and then magnificently or magically ascend into heaven? Does he disappear? Why, it seems to be expressed as a physical ascension. But how on earth does Jesus die, come back to life, then disappear into heaven as written in the scriptures? You see, this is a fascinating position, that the Son of God was tortured, emasculated, betrayed, stabbed in the side, and crucified. Some debate that Jesus may have lost consciousness before he awoke in the stillness of the cave. Yet what we know for certain is that Jesus was a real person who was crucified under Pontius Pilate, and within days or weeks, his followers publicly claimed that he had risen at their own enormous personal risk. Something had happened that transformed the once terrified and scattered disciples into people who were willing to die for what they had witnessed. The question isn't so much whether or not something dramatic occurred. The real question is what that something was. Now, with pure human logic, the story reads like a myth when you hear that Jesus was killed and rose on the third day. Then after he came back to life, he vanished to heaven. Some say he appeared in locked rooms. Others were not immediately able to recognize him by those who knew him well. Mary Magdalene mistakes him for a gardener, while the disciples on the road to Emmaus walk with him for miles without recognition. It's said he eats fish, shows his wounds, he appears, then disappears. But what if a modern man survived a near execution? Wouldn't that person have an urgent need to disappear? Might his or her behavior look exactly like this? Brief appearances to trusted people, careful movements with no public declarations, and then a final departure that his friends would interpret in the most meaningful way possible. What if an ascension didn't mean going into the clouds? It was Paul who wrote before the Gospels and never described a physical ascension. Rather, Paul described Jesus appearing to him on the road to Damascus in a blinding light, which could describe either a supernatural vision or a living man whose presence was overwhelming. The fact that Jesus disappears should have us further examine the idea of ascension. And so, if you were tortured, humiliated, destroyed, stabbed, and left for dead, what would happen if you yourself were not killed in the process? Would you stick around the same city that left you for dead? Or would you walk away, disappear, and change your name instead? We must consider the human context, because the death and resurrection ascension pattern is not unique to Jesus. It's one of the oldest mythological structures in the human experience. Osiris is killed, dismembered, and reassembled by Isis and rises. Dionysus is torn apart and reborn. Inanna descends, dies, and ascends. Persephone descends and returns. The pattern is so universal that it maps something real about our human psychological transformation, how the ego must die before something larger can live through us, and hence we discover that while none of our living bodies can achieve infinite life, there is a message that can go beyond our individual lives. As interesting as all these theories may be, we cannot go back and find an answer or see what happened in the past with our own eyes, but rather, we can ask a deeply human contemplation. What if a person completely surrenders to truth and devotion, offers themselves as a vessel with nothing held back? Then even after their life passes, what happens to the message? Such an ascension, like Jesus's, isn't magic, but it's a moment in a life where the message becomes bigger than a human being. It represents something larger than any person's physical whereabouts, and so, such a myth or message is the only place where such a soulful message is truly safe. And where is God in all of this? Why, I have heard that such freedom implies being completely alone. Oh, how can the mind, brought up in a culture so dependent on its rulers and its tendencies, ever find that freedom, which is complete solitude, and in which there is no leadership, no tradition, and no authority? In such solitude, we begin to understand the necessity of living with yourself as you are, not as you think you should be, or as you have been. When can you look at oneself without any tremor, any false modesty, any fear, any justification or condemnation, to just live with yourself as you actually are? But where was God in all of this? Why, I thought God was with me, yet here I feel so alone. And as we look back at any one of those trailblazers, we find a common pattern, that the masses who are stuck in ignorance tend to destroy what is most threatening to their self-image. They want to protect their wishes and the belief in the way things should be. Yet the moment they release this, they would find that they themselves are free. Whereas, it's the one with the clearest vision of what really is who is seen as the most dangerous, even though that person is passionately here to assist all of us. The masses are extraordinarily good at protecting their existing structures, whereas the mystic or prophet, in its original sense, is someone who speaks an uncomfortable truth, and is not necessarily someone who predicts the future, yet appears as a direct threat to stability. But where is God in all of this? Whether God is behind the scenes, or whether the human capacity for moral vision occasionally produces people who can see further than their time, is not something history nor philosophy can fully settle. But what seems clear is this: the figures we remember are the ones who don't wait for God to intervene. They acted on what they saw, absorbed the cost, and trusted, consciously or not, that the truth itself was durable enough to survive. So wherever you think God is, it doesn't matter if God appears from the clouds or how we wish for God to intervene. What matters is that the absolute truth has a kind of gravity and pulls things toward it, even over the centuries, even over the people who first touched it. The truth reveals how the message of love stretches beyond death across humanity. And where is God? Oh, I may wonder such a question all my life. And yet, even if I never find the answer, there was something within guiding me towards a great mountain with dark clouds above. With no verbal directions, I felt how the mermaid had been held hostage. There was an invisible feeling which all stemmed from love's deepest yearning. Feeling utterly alone, the journey took me up a mountain, as it became evident how the earth monsters had retreated all the way to the mountain's peak. They had backed themselves away from the dangers they created as they hijacked the temple atop the summit and hid from the world's chaos with private protection over their wealth and money. With their dark influence upon the world, they distracted the masses from afar. These monsters would use virtual platforms to brainwash the masses who spiraled into confusion. Oh, those monsters used the populations, and anyone who listened to them was misguided from the truth of salvation. Why, here on the trek up that mountain, the way was forward, but where was God? Where was Krishna? Now, as I found myself here, I was not a real horse, but the heartbeat within ran through my center like a wild stallion carrying God's light. Why, I was not quite this body or mind, but rather I carried God's force of divine life. Alone, up that mountain, the trek would take some time to get to the top. And when the first night had fallen, I came to rest near a river when I filled up a water cup. Then right before I went to bed, I placed the cup of water out under the stars in case God got thirsty. Why, how many nights had I forgotten to offer my last thought to God? Yet here I was, finally, a humble servant of God's divinity. And so I spoke, "Here, Supreme Lord, a cup of water for you under the starlight. May you always find a home in my heart." And so I bow to you as I close my eyes and rest under this evening's night. After the night, the morning sun rose where the journey continued on. When I realized there comes a time for all of us, after we have prepared our bodies and minds, when God is able to come out as God dwells behind the veil of our lives to take command and turn our nature towards divine fulfillment. This is the beginning of the true spiritual life. This is the essence of devotion as it relates to surrendering. At this point, the soul is able to make itself ready for a higher evolution of manifested consciousness, more so than the mere intellectual human. With God's grace, we pass from the mental to the spiritual, and through degrees of the spiritual to the supermental state. God is like a spark in our hearts, yet we must make the conditions right for such a spark to ignite. God has tried so many times to warm our lives, but then it is our ignorance which fights so hard not to be exposed by that truth which is so luminous and bright. The soul, which is the spark of the divine, supporting all individual existence, is a conscious force that grows throughout the natural world. Yet those who have lost a connection to this spark seek dominion and domination, as these are the ones we know as the earth monsters. Higher and higher upon the climb, the mind grew silent the nearer our body got to the peak. And so all of this external nature was but a reflection of the journey which took place inwardly. Yet when it comes to those horrors of such evil, those same villains and devils lived within. Why, I knew little of how to overcome such wicked powers, and even as I did not know how to defeat them, I knew that within my heart was a power that no monster could overcome. And so I knew that anything could happen through the grace of God. I had felt what God could do, and the grace was beyond this world. As the earth monster sought dominion on this plane of existence, it was nothing in comparison if only Krishna would emerge. And so I believed that as long as we rest in the selfless service of pure devotion, then what are we to lose? When we offer up our individual desires, wants, and wishes up to God, we become vehicles of pure truth. Oh, true love can achieve extraordinary things, even if it's rare. With the peak of the mountain in sight, there was a giant door which housed an ancient temple where the evil ones and villains hid from the world. Their secrets remained concealed in a stronghold which I presumed housed the whore of Babylon and the earth monsters. As I pondered what led us here, I reflected upon the birth of all of our bodies. There within each of us, we have the choice to evolve out from our lower consciousness. Here in this world, so many seek to dominate the earth, unaware of the inward levels of spiritual manifestation. Such a process leads us upon a spiritual evolution, where the individual body is only a perishable instrument, but through choices of bravery, courage, virtue, love, and truth, the body can be prepared to to welcome a cosmic inhabitant or a universal spirit. This is not you nor I, but rather such a force can ride upon us. And each grade of cosmic manifestation corresponds to the levels of selfless love to the highest heights. To be a home for an indwelling spirit requires a death and a rebirth to manifest the purest essence of this indwelling consciousness. Each rebirth becomes a step towards victory over matter by the intentional progression of selfless choices to serve the Spirit of God, which shall eventually make matter itself a means for the fullest manifestation of the Divine Spirit. Oh, but this door! There were monsters on the other side. And what would happen if I walk in where my soul comes to die? As a mere human, fearlessness cannot be realized in the absence of fear, but rather fear is a requirement if we wish to discover our truest nature. Feeling timid about this giant door ahead, I decided to rest that night where I'd enter in the morning, and so I prayed that evening for God's guidance, because I alone did not have the power to rescue the mermaid who had been held hostage behind it. On the second night along that mountain, again I took the cup and I filled it up before I left it under the starlight in case God got thirsty. With prayers and tears under each eye, I closed off my senses and surrendered to God as I bowed in service of justice, truth, love, and mercy. Then when I awoke the next morning, one eye opened to find how the glass was empty. In disbelief, I wondered, has God come? Was God really thirsty? Without another thought, laughter rattled my belly as the humor of the unknown quenched my spiritual thirst. What if God was a playful trickster, and something about life on earth was delightfully absurd? "What's so funny?" asked a wandering man nearby. This was a homeless man from the looks of it, while his gentle face held a radiant smile. "You'll never believe this, but last night, before I went to sleep, I offered a cup of water for God, and this morning it's empty." "Oh, why that's not a regular cup. That's a fine chalice. As I see, you've found the Holy Grail. But you know, perhaps it was an animal or a thirsty toad. Or maybe it was Krishna enjoying himself upon a divine occasion. But my boy, you know most people who come up this mountain bring weapons," he said. All I brought was this empty cup as I filled it up as an offering. I find myself here in service of God, as I have been led on the path of devotion. "Why, yes," paused the man, "and that's why you're going to win." With an empty cup in hand, I opened my heart and chanted to God as I walked closer to the door. After 3 knocks, the giant door came open, and without hesitation, a group of guards in uniforms grabbed me while they pointed their weapons at my head when I did not fight them. They led me ahead to the grand room where the earth monsters had gathered, and there behind them was the mermaid who had been held hostage, and nearest to me was the whore of Babylon. "Look at him. He hasn't even brought a weapon. What do you carry with you? What is that in your hand?" said one of the earth monsters. I raised up the offering cup, which I knew as a holy grail and God's chalice. "An empty cup?" said one of the earth monsters. "It's not empty. It's filled with God's love. This is the Holy Grail and divine chalice. This cup is symbolic of every human's deepest life purpose. We are here to be of service. We all have the ability to quench God's thirst if we discover devotion to God who works through us. Oh, he must be kidding. That's an empty cup, and it's not going to help you here. Prepared to be killed, said the earth monsters. Not yet, paused the whore of Babylon. I will grant him a choice, to be my servant, since the earth is made for my pleasure. Listen closely, darling, since you have the potential to be just like my monsters. You are a powerful creature, and so I offer you the chance of a lifetime. You can either join my pack of monsters, or you'll be a human slave of mine, said the whore of Babylon. May my life be an offering of devotional service, and so I surrender to God as I choose a life dedicated to love, truth, and virtue. Not my will, but God's will. And so I spoke aloud to the entire room while my eyes were focused upon the mermaid. In a sea of people, my eyes will always search for you. The whore of Babylon was shocked when her mouth dropped. She took off her outermost gown and puffed up her breasts. Excuse me? You only get one chance to make the right choice. My lips bring the greatest physical pleasure to men. Now choose me, and I will grant you your naughtiest desires, which few men have ever truly enjoyed. You can do whatever you want to me. You can throw me around or tie me to a bed. Have your way with me however you like. I'll give you a night you will never forget, said the whore of Babylon. Oh, but how could I look at the whore when the woman that held my heart through the hardest times was here in view? The mermaid had visited me in my dreams long before I met her in this world. This was always her, the mother of our future children, and I was devoted to the honorable woman who is pure and true. Are you listening to me? Yelled the whore of Babylon. My eyes wouldn't flinch or look away. Why, the mermaid was her, the lover, a future mother, and so the mermaid was who I had come to marry. Yet the mermaid had been attacked, held hostage, and captured by monsters, all because we shared profound love? Oh, what was this mermaid guilty of? She uplifted the community, spread hope and joy throughout humanity. And is this how we treat the great women of our world? We tie them to a post and force them to obey monsters? Yet if they disagree, we force them into bondage? Gone are the days of burning women at the stake, but instead, the monsters of the world confine and cage the souls of women into places they cannot escape. Meanwhile, these monsters rule the world and manipulate the markets. They start new wars and send our family into battles caused by satanic madness. Oh, these monsters have a terrible illness, and what are the women and children of our world to do? It is the honorable women who bring forth spiritual beings into our world, and it is the honorable men who must come forth and protect that which is pure and true while living as examples of human virtue. Meanwhile, these monsters lie. Their hypocrisy deceives the world each and every day. They treat the population like cattle, making false promises of greener pastures while they withdraw their money from the markets right before it crashes, only to reinvest when it's cheapest. Oh, how these monsters have destroyed our fertile world and led us astray. Listen to me, yelled the whore. But my eyes wouldn't move, for I had found the true lover whom I would offer my life to. And there my eyes whispered to the mermaid, whatever it takes, I vow to protect you. Now since the whore always wanted more, she stomped her foot to get my attention. But even her pride and power couldn't freeze my enthusiasm. The whore's piercing eyes tried to convey her criticism, judgment, and ridicule. She wanted to make me believe I'd end up humiliated, but I wouldn't move my eyes off from the mermaid. The whore yelled how it was inevitable that I would fail, and she expressed why the mermaid wasn't worth saving. But she was the whore who plants seeds of doubt in the mind, with hopes that weeds would ruin the garden. This whore of Babylon tried anything and everything to break the loving bond between the mermaid and I's attention. But between this lover and I was a rose thread that united our hearts together, and that rose thread could not be broken. And so the whore of Babylon spoke, "You've got one last chance to bow to me now, or else wherever you go, I'll have my monsters torment you in ways you would never imagine. I'll have every whore in the land blackmail your family and friends. I'll make sure everyone you ever meet takes a cheap shot at you until it drives you so insane that you never love again," she said. Now the whore of Babylon marched even closer and stood right in front of me. She jumped up and down to wave her hands in my face to break the gaze so focused upon the mermaid's pure essence. "Who do you think you are?" the whore yelled. With all of my awareness focused on the mermaid, I found how our connection refused to depart, and so I spoke to the mermaid with all that was in my heart. "I will never own you. I am not here to control you. I see purity within you, for you are an honorable woman, and I trust that you know what your soul is here to do. I have not come to limit you, nor will I make demands upon you, but rather I am here to love you," I told the mermaid. And so one of the earth monsters spoke. "Oh, you say that now, but you wouldn't love her if she didn't choose you? The moment she finds a man more powerful, more secure, with more wealth or more success, she'll never again look to you," he said. And so I spoke to the mermaid. The more a man needs a woman to stay, the less magnetic he becomes. Yet the more a man is rooted in himself, the more a woman is drawn to the center that is pure love. My love is not here to gain some advantage or to win you over. My love gives and gives and gives while seeking no reward and nothing in return. I love you because I want to see you flourish more than I want my own comfort. I love you without knowing how, or when, or why, or from where. Our love is like the sun. It shines for all as it gives its light to all others. Lovers like us don't finally meet somewhere. What we are is love. So how could we ever be separated when we were in each other all along? Love is not just some feeling, but rather a state of being. And when I look into your eyes, it's love that sees the other completely. There is no you, and there is no I. There is only one love, and such love never dies. No matter what happens here, love wins because love is brave enough to endure. I have not come to save you for my sake. I need you to be free for yours. Blasphemy, yelled an earth monster. Then at once, that monster raised a sword and swept the blade down at my head as it sliced at my neck, but hit the Tulsi mala I'd been wearing instead. A moment later, the blade shattered into 1,000 pieces when only a single Tulsi bead split open. Then I heard Krishna whispering from within the heart, "The mala has absorbed something it needed to absorb on your behalf. It took a hit meant for you, and it has completed its protection at last. This break signals a major transition. The old path to get here has been completed, and now begins your journey into pure devotion. The old fears end, so something larger can begin. This bead breaks because love wins. When a Tulsi bead breaks, it means you are able to move on from wearing the necklace as a symbol of devotion to being the devotion. Yet, this bhakti, or devotion, cannot be attained. It is a gift. You don't need a reminder around your neck anymore, because devotion has moved within. Your heart is open completely, and you are ready for what is next. My son, I call it Hieros Gamos, which is the sacred marriage. It is concerned with the attunement of something that has two sides, two elements, like the two pillars of a great temple. With her on one side, you stand upon the other. This is the ultimate union that comes at the end of a journey, when what is above and what is below are united and of one mind. This journey has brought forth self-healing, self-change, and pure union, nothing less than unobstructed, perfect union. Such a union cannot be forced, and material advances must not weigh heavily on the journey of devotion, said Krishna's voice. Now the earth monsters began to back away when the whore began to weep, and with a whisper, the whore said, "How come not a single one of you monsters has ever loved me that deep?" When I looked at the whore, I saw that she and her monsters had been starved of love more than anyone else upon the planet. What she had just witnessed was the purest love which she'd never seen in all her existence. Knowing that such love was real transformed them, not with force, but through a spiritual presence. With a step toward the mermaid, a great force of energy began to radiate between our hearts, and like a giant bubble, it began to pulsate with the vibration of divine love. The earth monsters had no choice but to back away, because they couldn't stand what it exposed about what they had become, which was hollow. These earth monsters spent their entire existence pursuing material things, knowing it would never last. But now that they were in the presence of pure love, they had found the source which transcended everything. The earth monsters wanted to possess it, but such love cannot be owned or corrupted. The earth monsters had seen it with their own eyes, and the craving for such depth and connection turned out to be unbearable for them. And because they had witnessed it, they became aware of their own evil actions. This love had power beyond weapons, as it dissolved the barriers of hatred where the monsters were finally defeated as they realized what they had done to our world. The field of love grew bigger and bigger until it stretched beyond the walls of the mountain's temple, radiating across the earth. Such love grew into a sphere that was interdimensional, beyond time, space, and physical barriers. Only love like that can change the fate of our world. Such unconditional love is a frequency that corrupted consciousness literally cannot inhibit. And even if the villains still had evil in their hearts, destroying their own purity, it was impossible not to be aware of love's presence. This was the same way that darkness could never extinguish a fire's presence. Finally, within reach of the mermaid, I untied her from the post and set her free. As I got down on one knee, I promised to protect her for all the days of my life. When I offered her my heart completely, I opened my chest when I reached into my life and put my hands in her heart. I offered her the tigress's tooth, which was the ultimate mystery, and now it was back in the hands of the divine feminine. With the celestial weapon in the feminine grip, it took shape of an almighty sword when she tapped it upon both shoulders on each side of my head. And so the mermaid spoke, "Answer the greatest call of your soul. You are here to seed even more of what you have come here to share. We acknowledge your arrival as the initiation of new life. Few have courage to walk such a path, and you have been led to leadership. You have come here for this, to lead, to lead, to lead. Your soul is ancient, and it is time to share your deepest gift," she said. Her gaze was ancient, and in that moment I saw her request in the edge of her smile. And so I spoke. "I will offer you the greatest gift of life. I will offer you the Holy Grail. and so I will give you the gift of a child." I handed her the empty cup, and together we filled it with water. We placed it before God when we set it upon the holy altar. A moment later, the whore of Babylon came forward and spoke, "I am not your enemy. I am the Divine Mother's lost daughter, and until now I refuse to love our world properly. So will you help me? Can we serve humanity together?" said the whore of Babylon. "Of course, but we all must make amends for what we have done to humanity," said the mermaid. Now, since the Divine Feminine had reclaimed the celestial weapon, there was a power that had been activated which had been dormant before. And the moment the whore gazed upon the eyes of the Divine Feminine, a great transmission occurred. The whore fell to her knees, not in defeat, but in recognition, because she had finally been seen without transaction. The Divine Feminine held her with pure love, not for her body, not for her power, and not for her submission. The Divine Feminine holds space for everyone. And that's what created the whore's conversion. It was not a decision. It is a disillusion. She entered into something true that was always underneath, a lost daughter who always wanted to be loved. At once, the whore's skin turned dark as night as her hair grew disheveled. She began to feel the pain of every person who had been used, who was never truly loved. As if she had been set on fire, the whore grabbed a blade out from the hands of an earth monster and began to slash them to pieces. It was fierce, bloody, and necessary until not a single earth monster was left breathing. From that moment on, the whore of Babylon was a devotee of the Divine Feminine power. And so, only love can save the world. Not because it defeats evil in combat, but because love opens a doorway beyond this world where only the pure in heart can enter. After the whore had been transformed, she went back into the world when the mermaid and I were left alone together. With a ring upon her finger, they would call this the sacred marriage, or Hieros Gamos, which is the alchemical crowning mystery. The union of the sun and moon, Sol and Luna, the king and queen, sulfur and mercury, the fixed and the volatile. In the alchemical texts, this union was never merely sexual, it was cosmological. The two opposites dissolve into each other completely, and from that dissolution, something entirely new is born, the philosopher's child, that gold that was never gold before. In one way, some would say that the mermaid and I went out into the cosmic water fountain where we bathed together before the child was finally summoned. And as the purity of the mother and father came together, so the Holy Grail was discovered. This was an invitation for the birth of a spiritual being, and just like that, there was a divine explosion where we came together in perfect union. In alchemy, the king and queen must both die to whom they were before the sacred marriage can occur. They descend into the darkness, the blackening, the disillusion, and only from that do they rise together transformed. The union isn't between two whole people protecting themselves. It's between two people who have given up the last thing they were protecting. And so, just as the alchemist drew it, the sacred marriage invites the king and queen to merge together in a bath, disappearing into the same water and rising from it as one unified being. Not two people who choose each other, two people who became each other through mutual surrender. And so, the seed of the child was planted in the holiest temple, the womb of the mother.